Hi everyone. So yesterday I posted a video where I showed a deck that I got to um I think I got to rank 60 in that video. I'm at rank 70 now. So I managed to get to rank 70 with just the pool 1 cards, and so I thought I'd make a tier list just cuz tier lists are fun and I can clickbait it. Talking about like the pool 1 cards and what I would focus on if you were trying to climb in Marvel Snap. So, just really quickly, I'm going to define what the tiers mean because I might have different like credentials than other people do. So the S tier cards are going to be the cards that I think are powerful enough where you can build it around and they can be like the main focal point of your deck. Either that or they're just so like strong where they're generically good in most decks. And keep in mind, this is just talking about in relation to other pool 1 cards. I'm not going to talk about pool 1 cards when you expand to other pools. I don't have any pool 2 cards myself. Maybe I have like 2. I might have just started getting pool 2 cards. Um, but when I just have pool 1 cards, these are cards that are going to be the like foundations of a deck that you can that you should focus on using when you're playing Marvel Snap, or they're just really generically powerful. Tier A are like a little bit worse than that, obviously. So I'm thinking like cards that are just like really, really strong and like can make a deck shine, but maybe like don't have the support right now, or like they're maybe a little bit underpowered compared to other cards. Tier B is gonna just be like above average cards, cards that are either overstated or can shine in the right deck. Um, and like they're very powerful in the correct strategy that you are able to use in tier one. Tier C is going to be cards that I think are either understated or just like too niche to really use well, and they might be strong in niche strategies. I'll explain that, but they're just not really good enough. And Tier D is cards that are just like strictly worse than other cards that I wouldn't consider playing. And remember, this is all in relation to Pool 1, cards that I think as a player that just started, um, and only has access to Pool 1 cards that you can climb with. I got to rank 70 on my account after just a few days by using like these cards that I think are just stronger than other cards, and that's kind of the focus that I want to really highlight on here. 1 second, sorry. So remember, like some of these cards, I'm gonna even say I can see getting a lot better when you have access to other cards that I've seen that like players who get to pool 3 and stuff like that can use better. But when you just have access to pool 1 cards, these are all in relation to pool 1 cards. So let's get started. I think Angel is understated. I think that's a C tier card. Um, I think it is like it meets the rate of like being a 2/1 is like fine. For like being 2 cost and 1 mana is fine, but it's not really that good most of the time. And I think there are better 1 drops I would play over it almost always. I think Ant Man is S tier. I think Ant Man is one of the few cards I'm gonna put in S tier. Ant Man is so good. I mean, just the power you can get with this card is insane. 1 mana for 4 power is crazy, and then you can even like make it stronger. Like, there's a lot of ongoing synergy in Pool One, and locations that can boost ongoing synergy that just make this card way better. So you can easily make this card more than 1 mana for 4 power. So I think this is one of the few cards I'm going to put in S tier. I think Blade is B. 1 mana for 3 is really good, but it comes with card disadvantage. Most of the time, I feel like I still have a hand in the average game of Marvel Snap. Like, I still have cards in my hand, so discarding isn't as big as I would say it is in like Magic or something like that. But I do think it's like a little too sus, but also it enables some strategies. So I think it's a B tier card. I think Electra is A tier. Um, Electra is understated, but can kill somebody else's Ant Man, somebody else's Nightcrawler. And if you reveal it the final turn of the game or something like that, like it's cheap. It's a really cheap removal effect. There isn't a lot of removal in pool 1 from what I can see. It allows you to like swing a spot really easily, and like subtly. Like if you reveal this on the last turn of the game and you play another like 5 cost that's powerful, you can like shift 2 lanes really easily. So like she might be 1 mana for 1 power, but the effect is like greater than 1 power if you think of it that way. Like she is causing a shift greater than 1 power. I think Hawkeye is underpowered. This might be kind of controversial, but I think like I don't know, like it's just I feel like it doesn't. The effect isn't that is like kind of strong, but it's very linear. You don't really want to like it's not a reveal effect you want to repeat with like another card. Where I feel like it just isn't like good enough. I feel like there are just better 1 drops where I put this as underpowered. I think Iron Fist is similarly a little underpowered. I would say this is like a high C tier card. I think there is some movement synergies in this deck. Like there's multiple men and stuff like that. But I think when you just have pool 1 cards, it doesn't like you don't have enough support where you're like I want it. Like I'm really rewarded for having a movement strategy. So Iron Fist I think is like a high C tier card because you can also use them to cheese some locations, which is useful. Like you can get in Death's Domain, the recent altar card that got revealed, stuff like that. But I think overall a little weak. I think Korg is high B tier. Giving your opponent a rock is like a really powerful effect. I really like this card. This is featured in my deck that I uploaded the other day. I mean, I'm still a newer player, so I could be wrong. This is just, again, this is my opinion. It's all my opinion. I could be wrong. But I think it is an overstated one drop. I think this is a one drop with a really powerful effect in relation to other one drops. So I would play this card and I would consider it overstated. Mantis is like high C tier, low B tier. Uh, it's kind of just like so. This isn't one of the strongest budget decks I found, which is interesting as far as like just in relation to pool 1 cards. But overall, I think Mantis generally doesn't draw you a card, so just a baseline 2/1. Like there's better cards if you don't draw the card off of. However, if you do draw the card, it is pretty powerful. But it's kind of like it's harder to predict and weave her in on a good turn compared to some of the other cards. Like when you have like on your turn 6, if you have a one drop where you're like sure Mantis is finally gonna draw the card, you can't use the card you draw. Um, and like turn 6 is the most obvious turn where you can put a one drop down and it'll probably like one of these reveal effects I should say. You have the most educated guess of where your reveal effects are gonna have a target. Um, Theirs just isn't as powerful as like Rocket Raccoon, for instance. If you want a 1 mana reveal effect that's gonna hit, um, and I think they're a little understated where I would put them in like a lower C tier. Misty Knight is objectively the worst one drop. It's just a vanilla 1/2, so I think it's the worst. I think Nightcrawler is possibly S tier. Maybe I'll bump them down to A. But Nightcrawler has the second best effect out of the one drops that I've seen that we've talked about so far. The fact that you can move them into another spot is really useful, and it makes your turns really unpredictable for your opponent and very adaptable for yourself. I think this effect is super strong. I love Nightcrawler, one of the coolest cards in the game. I really like the design. Nova is, I would say, B tier. They generically are like on stat, and they can give you more power. They can technically give you more power than Ant-Man. It's just a little hard to enable, and I think that the enablers for Nova aren't super plentiful in just pool 1 cards. So I would say they are, like pretty solid. Quicksilver, I think is maybe B tier, maybe low C tier. The fact that you always have them on turn 1 is pretty useful. I like these cards that say like you always draw this on this turn. Those effects generally I think are pretty good. Where I would say Quicksilver is above average. Like being able to just like get a little bit of power down on the first turn isn't bad. Having a one drop turn 1 isn't bad. Rocket Raccoon I would say similarly like low B tier, high C tier, where if you hit with Rocket Raccoon it's really good. If you don't hit with Rocket Raccoon it's just average. Like it's at least it's on stats. Where I think they are like by that definition considered above average. Where like their worst case is like it's just a 1 mana for a 2/1. But their best case is you have twice as much power in the tile, which is really good. And similar to what I was talking about with Mantis, you can save this for like turn 6 or something where you're sure it's going to hit, and then it's a pretty huge swing. Then it's the same power as Ant-Man, which is really good. Um, Squirrel Girl, I think you could make an argument that Squirrel Girl is B tier. But my biggest issue with Squirrel Girl is she just pollutes so many spots. Where like, so I think Squirrel Girl is really strong in the deck I posted even. But the issue with Squirrel Girl is that I guess when I look at the other cards I've in C tier, Squirrel Girl is stronger than I think these other cards because she does just like so she's 1 mana for 3 power across 3 tiles, but she just takes up 3 spots. She does like allow you to win multiple lanes with like a really minimal commitment, which I think is interesting. Like she just has a threat of like winning multiple tiles for a low amount of mana, where sometimes you can just cheese it out with a squirrel. So I'm gonna bump them up to B tier on further talking about it, just because I think when I hold them next to the other C tier cards, Squirrel Girl is definitely better. I think the Watcher's effect is fine, but I think it's a C tier card. I don't think the effect is as strong as some of the other B tier cards. Not saying it's bad, just it's whatever. Yondu similarly, I think Yondu is like higher C tier, because if you like double this on reveal effect, I think it's kind of cool. This might just be like me pet carding it too much. I think that Angela is one of the cards that you want in most of your decks when you just have access to pool A, and I think you can also build the whole deck around making Angela as strong as possible because the effect is really good. Turn 2, presenting a win condition is amazing. This card is also out of date. It doesn't. It's 2 mana for 0. I think this is like the maybe it must have even got nerfed at some point. I think this is an S tier card when you just consider it to pull one cards. I think armor is it's either B or A. It's a good card for sure. I just don't know if it's B or A. I'm gonna put it in B tier for now. I think the effect is really good. I think it can also shut down other opponents' effects. You know, I guess I'll say armor is A tier because it can shut down other opponents' effects and it can enable you to set up some pretty gross stuff. Cable. I didn't mean to move her down there. Cable is, I think, also B tier. Drawing a card is pretty good on a 2-drop that always hits, and it's also one of your opponent's cards, so you can also like potentially snipe something important from them. Or I think it's pretty good. Controversial take. Carnage is going to C tier. I think Carnage is really good in niche strategies. I think Carnage gets a lot better when you have other pool cards, but when like you compare them to the other cards that you're going to see here, I don't think Carnage has the support to be like an amazing card. I think most of the time you're like freeing up slots for power, but like you don't really have like a huge payoff that makes you want to do it. Like I don't really see the point most of the time. Where like I think Carnage can be really useful in certain situations, but I think that Carnage doesn't have the support in just pool 1. But I think Carnage gets like substantially better, like going up to A tier or something like that when you have access to other pools. But remember, this is just relative to pool 1. Colossus is really good. Like just an undisputable, like that stats like 2 mana for 3 power that can't be altered in any way, can't be destroyed is really good. It can let you win some weird tiles. It can really throw a wrench in your opponent's plans. Like play this in Death's Domain, play this in the locations that are like -1 power, -3 power. Your 2 mana is worth way more than your opponent's 2 mana play because you have 3 power there, and it's kind of hard to put power there. I think this card is really, really kind of a sleeper. I think it's pretty good. I would you know you could maybe even say this is A tier just because like I think this could be A tier just because it's definitely A tier on some tiles, but there's also some tiles where like Colossus doesn't really do anything. But Colossus is never like bad. Like it never does worse than some of the other cards here. Like its worst days are not that bad. Its worst days are really average. So maybe I'm gonna say this is actually probably A tier. I think Domino is C tier. I could see this card being more powerful when you have access to some of the other cards I've seen, like Zabu, like Silver Surfer, like stuff like that, where you like guaranteed to get a 2-drop. But as I kind of talked about, like, why would you play this when you just like you kind of want 2 drops in your deck, generically, or sometimes you might even want to focus on 1 drops. Like the deck I posted before, it was really focused on 1 drops where Domino doesn't really do anything. So like having a 2-drop on 2 is good, but it might not be worth the slot you provide to other places. Okay, sorry about that. I was getting really warm in my sweater and I was starting to sweat and get gross, so I wanted to change. So let's keep going. Forge, I think, is like a low B tier card for a few reasons. So it gives the next card you play +2, so you can get more than you would out of most 2-drops for this effect. And again, if we consider the floor of 2-drops, it's 2 mana for 3 power. It's spread out how you want. Like you have more choice on where you want the 3 power. So I think just for that reason alone, like it has to be better than C tier because it's inherently above average. And then the fact that you can like the fact that you can make it even better than another 2-drop, I think makes it B tier. Just in relation to pool 1, you know, I could see this card even getting better. Like if you could always go this like Forge into Mr. Sinister or something like that, this card's really good. If you have a bunch of enablers that kind of like facilitate a similar type of effect, I think this card is better than B tier. Next is Craven. I think Craven doesn't have the support. I think Craven is C tier. I could see Craven being really powerful in like when you have access to more like movement-based cards, but like when Nightcrawler is the only card you can consistently move to this space, and like maybe Iron Fist, I think this card feels really underpowered. Lizard is tier A in my opinion. I think Lizard's crazy good. The fact that like 2 mana for 4 power, 2 mana for 5 power? Did it get buffs? Maybe I'm remembering the wrong card. But I think it's a really strong effect, and also like If your opponent commits 4 slots there, you have a really good idea. Like you can most of the time tell when your opponent's going to commit to stop the lizard. Um, you are really able to like work out how you want to represent the other 2 lanes. So you kind of make your opponent overcongest this lane. You can just leave Lizard alone there, and then you can either see like, okay, they committed too much here, where now this file is really weak, and I can dump more resources in here and win this tile. Or you can just say, okay, they put all their good cards in this lane because they knew they wanted to stop the Lizard. I'm abandoning this lane. They committed huge resources here. I'm going to win the other 2. So I think this card makes it A tier. Medusa, I think, is actually above average. Maybe this is a hot take. I think Medusa is like low B tier though. The fact that it gets shut down really easily, like there's ways where you're just like not gonna be able to play this in the middle, like Death's Domain card can't be played here, the forge location thing, stuff like that. I think this card does fall below average, but the fact that it like is overstated and like you pretty consistently can get it overstated, I don't think it's that bad. I think Mr. Sinister is also low B tier. I think you can use it in some tiles to make it. I think there's synergies with it that make it powerful. Like Blue Marvel, like there's payoffs for having 2 bodies for 1 card. It is overstated too. Like it's 2 bodies for 4 power. It just takes up 2 spots. But taking up 2 spots in this game actually matters a lot in a way I didn't think it would. Like in Hearthstone, this card would be like really good. Like it's above rate or something like that. Maybe not in like the current meta or whatever. But like taking up 2 spots isn't that big of a deal. But when you only have 4 slots, like this takes up half your spaces for 2 mana. So like on 2 mana, like you've committed half your available resources to a single lane, which is crazy. But I do think it's above average, and I think there's ways to make this card better. Like as I said with Domino, or not Domino, what's the card? Forge. If you can go Forge into Mr. Sinister, um, that's really good. You know what I mean? Like then you have eight power for 2 mana. That's crazy. Where I feel like that is better. Multiple Men, I'm gonna put like a really high C tier. I think it's better than Mr. Sinister, but if like it's the kind of card that I think also gets better when you have access to more pools because you have better movement based stuff. But right now, like what can move this card? Like Heimdall can move this card, and like Iron Fist can move this card. Like there's just not enough payoffs. But I do think this card is like nichely powerful and will get better with other cards. I think Scarlet Witch is actually A tier. Scarlet Witch can really swing a fight. Like it can really like throw your opponent off. The fact that you just get to like completely change the tide of a space and like your opponent might be avoiding it for like 3 or 4 turns and like set up what they play a payoff card that they want to commit to this lane, and then you're just like, nope, this is a totally different lane now. You just sunk your resources into like an unoptimal lane, and Scarlet Witch made it into something that doesn't really affect anything. I think this card is pretty powerful and can steal some games. Sentinel, I think, is also A tier. The fact that it is like on stats and draws another version of itself, so you can like really fill out your curve in weird ways, and also this is um, like one of the really important cards and like one of the best decks you can make with just pool 1 cards. I think this card is A tier. Shocker is terrible. Again, it's just like why would you play this? You know what I mean? Um, I think Starlord is actually B tier. Maybe a controversial take. I really like Starlord. I think Starlord is super powerful sometimes. The fact that you get 2 mana for 5 power, like pretty consistently, because he's pretty easy to weave into turns, is really good. I think he is like way better than Groot because of first of all, I think Groot is 1 more power for 1 more mana, which is not worth it. But also like the fact that he's 2 mana, you can really weave him into some turns, and get a huge swing for a cheap amount of mana. So I think he's good. I am gonna put Wolverine at low B tier because I think he is like on stats. If you get him in for free, it's really good, and the fact that he is kind of similar to Colossus in the sense that like he can't really be destroyed, but he's like more random. I think he's worse than Colossus. Uh, he can win some tiles and commit to some tiles that you normally aren't able to with other characters. And also, like I think some of the discard cards aren't bad. He is like a payoff for some of the cards where I think he is above average. Bishop I think is also S tier. I think Bishop is insane. I really like Bishop. He's a really good card, and I think he also gets better when you have access to more pools. But again, this is just based on pool 1. I think Bishop is one of the strongest effects in the game. He even got nerfed here. Look at it. He's 1 power right now. So 3 mana for 1 power. So like a common line I would find is I play Angela in one lane, I play Bishop in another lane. I commit 3 cards to Angela, maybe 4 or something if I like played Nightcrawler and then teleport him away. And now Angela and Bishop both grew and are huge threats. My turn 2, my turn 3, and then turn 4, turn 5, I can decide how I want to commit my other resources. But Bishop like will just kind of like be a threat that you can't ignore in a lane by himself. And then you can decide to commit more power there. He is very easily can be like a 3 mana 8 threat, a 3 mana 7 threat. Like he's way above stats most of the time. Even if you play him on turn 3 and you go, like 4 drop, 5 drop, 6 drop, right? Like just I'm playing on curve, then he's 3 mana for 4 power, and that's like not good, but that's worst case scenario. If you play, you know, uh, turn 3, turn 4 I play 1-3, turn 3 I play 2-2, then he's 3 mana for 5. He's already above average. I think he's a really strong card. I think he's one of the cards that you can seriously climb with. I think Captain America is high B tier. 3 mana for 3 is not bad. And then the fact that you play him in another tile and he's producing 4 power there is already good. Like if there's one other card there, he's producing 4 power, and he's really strong in certain synergies. I think Captain America is a really good baseline card. Cosmo has a really strong ongoing effect, has great synergy with ongoing like strategies, which is one of the routes I think you can go with just the pool 1 card is ongoing synergies. And the fact that he shuts down like the opposite strategy of that just by himself, like this one card will shut down so many like powerful things your opponent will try to do. I think Cosmo is really good. Cyclops is terrible. You would not play him over other cards. I think Deathlock is high C, low B. If you play Deathlock as your only 3 drop in a lane, he's above stats. You can play him in a lane and kill some other guys, and it's not even a downside for you. Like he's a way you can blow up Nova. I don't think he has the support you need. Most of the time, I beat the like just pull 1 cards, discard, and destroy deck myself. I don't know how other people do. I actually cheese 8 cubes out of them pretty frequently because like they do their powerful thing, and it's like not bad, but then they lose the lane anyways. I don't know. I think Deathlock is like a really strong C tier card, but overall I think it is not like the best. I think Doctor Strange is also C tier. I think you can. He might be better. I mean, you can really pull some crazy stuff out with Doctor Strange, but for the most part, I don't see Doctor Strange winning many games. I do see him winning tiles, but I don't see him winning games. I'll bump him up to B tier. I think the effect is pretty powerful, but I don't think Doctor Strange is the best. I haven't been that impressed by him. I could obviously be wrong. I don't think Groot is that good. I think Groot is one of the worst reveal cards in the pool 1 cards. Um, 3 mana is a lot to miss with. Like if you play him for 3 mana and you miss with him, it's really terrible. Like it feels awful. Compared to some of the other cards where you play it, it only costs you 1 or 2 mana and it's not that big of a deal. I think Groot is a little underpowered. I think just by stats alone, Hulkbuster has to be B tier. 3 mana for 4 stats isn't bad. 3 mana for 4 stats that doesn't take up a spot, like you just enchant it onto a card, and there isn't really like an easy way to destroy cards with just the pool 1 stuff, except like some 1-drops and stuff like that. Or your own cards, and you destroy your own cards. But I think like Hulkbuster just generally is good stats for cost, and he doesn't take up a spot. So I think he is just like an above average card for that reason. I think Ironheart is also B tier, like higher B tier. I'm not. This isn't really in order, if I'm being honest. I haven't like ordered these. Like Cable is not the second best B tier card. I don't know what is. But, you just get the gist. I think Ironheart is really good in the on reveal strategy deck, which is one of the archetypes you can take with just the pool 1 cards. And as long as you have 3 other cards, generates a lot of power and can also win lanes that are closed off. Like you can play an Ironheart, and a lane where you can no longer play cards in for both players is filled, and they can win the card there. If you double this effect, like if you play it again, if you play a 3 mana card for 12 power, that's really good. So Ironheart, I think, is above average. I don't think she's A tier by herself, but I think she is really good because you can't really control it. It's very random. Uh, this card I think is also C tier. I don't think that I'm gonna say the same thing for these cards. The discard synergies isn't good enough, and just pull 1 cards in my opinion. I think Mr. Fantastic is high B tier. I don't think he's A tier. Um, so he similar to Squirrel Girl, where I made Squirrel Girl higher tier. Uh, he represents a threat to multiple lanes just by himself without committing spots. Where I feel like he's a pretty strong effect. I just think he ends up getting power creeped once you have more of the pool 3 cards. But I do not think Mr. Fantastic is bad. I think he's actually pretty good. He's 3 power. he's 3 mana for 6 power across 3 lanes without committing a body, which is really good. But sometimes you can't play him in the middle, and when you can't play him in the middle, he feels kind of weak. I do feel like he is above average though. I tried Morph. I think Morph is really fun. I think Morph is like actually a super fun card, but I do not think he is worth 3 mana. If you 3 mana play a card and then you get a 2-drop or a 1-drop or a 3-drop, most of the time it's not that good. If you get a Hulk off of it or an Iron Man, which I've done before and it's hilarious, it's obviously nice. But most of the time I feel like there's just a better 3-drop you can play over Morph, and you feel really silly when your card doesn't work out. And like you actually you basically wasted mana. Like I just gave up 2 mana to get a second Ant-Man or something. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty rough. Okay, Punisher I think is also B tier. Really similar to Mr. Fantastic, except he's committed to a lane. Punisher, when you know your opponent can swarm, is really good in certain spots. I think Punisher is above average. I'm kind of getting like, you know, I'm approaching the end here. Where I'm speeding up a little bit. I think Swordmaster is similar reason. I think Swordmaster is one of the better discard payoffs just because he's so powerful for the effect. But maybe he's might be one of the few B tier cards of this effect. But I don't think the discard deck is good enough. Wolfsbane is tier A. I think Wolfsbane is really good. If you play it when there are 3 other cards there, the card is insane power for cost. And that is just all it is. They are very above stats most of the time. I think Enchantress is also A tier. I think it is one of the few examples of disruption in just the pool 1 cards, and the disruption is really powerful, similar to Cosmo. Good stats for cost. I think Enchantress is really good. Jessica Jones, I'm actually going to put in S tier. I think Jessica Jones is insane. 4 mana for 8 power is great. Playing her on curve is amazing. You can really, really throw off your opponent and set up for really strong turns with Jessica Jones. I think Jessica Jones is one of the few cards on here that is just like here for pure power level alone. Like the fact that she gives you double the power for her energy is insane. It's really good, and it's only in 1 body. I think Jessica Jones is like super powerful. Really good card. Controversial, maybe. I love Khazar. I want to put Khazar in A, but realistically speaking, I think Khazar. Oh wow, Khazar actually got nerfed. See, he's 4 for 4 right now. Khazar is really good though. Khazar is great. He just sometimes, like I had Jessica Jones and Khazar in the same deck. Sometimes you just don't draw your 1-drops, or like you need to be in this awkward spot where you need to play a certain amount of 1-drops to buff with Khazar, and you don't have them where he's worth it. Where I feel like since he can kind of like miss, he's B tier, but I think really consistently he provides a lot of power for 4 mana where Khazar is good. Moon Girl is, I think, low B tier. Moon Girl is in one of the best decks you can make with just the pool 1 cards, but her effect is kind of awkward sometimes. She's not bad stats for cost, but her effect can be kind of awkward, where you like miss a draw and fill your hand up with stuff that you don't really want more of. But also sometimes she can give you like double Iron Man or double Devil Dinosaur, where she's worth it. I think Moon Girl can miss, but is really good. I want to put Namor, I guess is his name, in A tier kind of, but I think that it's really easy to get disrupted as far as losing the bonus effect. Like some locations will just like, you know, like you just have squirrels, you just have raptors, you just have ninjas, you just have like dinosaurs or something. Like it's really easy for him to like just accidentally get screwed out of having his bonus. However, I think he's one of the strongest B tier cards where he's almost A tier because his effect is so good. Like if you just play him by yourself, or if like say it's like Asgard where it's like turn 4 if you're winning here get 2 cards. If you just play him by himself, he's gonna win that square most of the time by turn 4. He can be really powerful. I think Namor is a very strong card. It's just disruptible, which is the issue. Strongman, same thing. I don't think the discard deck is good. I don't think you want to have no cards in hand. The thing is just worse than other cards. White Queen, I'm gonna put at A. Because she is in the best deck. She draws you a card that you're probably going to be able to use turn 5, turn 6 if you don't already have one. And the fact that she is just above stats for cost, I don't really see a downside to this card. I think she's very powerful. Abomination is like 5/9, so it did get buffed. I think you could almost say this card is C tier, but I think there's better 5-drops that you could just play by themselves, and they're pretty good, where I don't think he's worth it. Blue Marvel, I think, is S tier, maybe A tier. I think Blue Marvel is one of the cards in the pool 1 pool where you can build a deck around him. I think he's strong enough where he can just be the main focal point of your deck, and that is what like makes him S tier in my opinion. Where he can be the reason why I am playing this deck. Like my deck is built around a Blue Marvel, where I think he's possibly S tier. Devil Dinosaur is S tier. Uh, Probably the strongest card in Pool 1. The effect is ridiculous. 5 power for like 5 mana for like 17 power is crazy, and it's really not hard to get. Even if you just have like 3 cards in hand, like it's 5 power for plus for 9, that's crazy. It's really really good. Um, Gamora I think is B tier. I think Gamora you can miss with, and then it feels kind of bad. But Gamora 5 power for 12 is really good. Gamora can really like swing some games. Iron Man is A tier in my opinion, maybe B tier. I'm gonna say low A, high B because Iron Man has a ridiculously strong effect. I think he gets better when you have access to other pool cards because there's like Mr. Negative where you can do crazy stuff with. But just relative to Pool A, I feel like sometimes you play him there, and other 5 drops just contribute more power. But also, so he's kind of a win more card. Is basically like the point I want to make here, where he is really good when you're ahead because he like basically says like I can't lose the spot unless you also have an Iron Man. But if you're like at parity at a spot or like behind at a spot and you just have Iron Man as your 5 drop, and you already have like 2 cards there, the last card you put there is really important because he doesn't contribute as much power as like another 5 drop possibly could. So I'm gonna say he's like low A, high B. I think Claw is also a really strong 5, but the distribution he has can be kind of awkward sometimes, where you might not want it to be on the right, you might not be able to put him on the left. Like there's just awkward orientations where I feel like he can't be A tier. I do not think he is a card you have to build around. Like I don't think he's a strong enough card to build around. I don't think he's a card you can like consistently say this card is gonna solo hand like win me the game, or this card is gonna like be so influential that it's gonna win me a spot. Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. This kind of hurts me. Professor X is C tier to me. Even though I love him, even though I have him, like he was one of the first cards I got in Pool 1, and I think he's really cool, and I cheese games with him really hard. He just doesn't have the support. I mean, like the fact that you have no way to ramp in Pool 1, or like Daredevil is a card I've seen that other people have. I don't know if it's Pool 2. I don't know if it's Pool 3. I don't know when you get him. But like the fact that you're kind of just like guessing a spot that you can win in, and you can like actually hurt yourself really bad, I think he's underpowered. However, I do think the effect is really cool. I do think he gets stronger in other characters. I love him as a card. I think he's a really interesting design. I do think he's underpowered. Spider Woman is like Spider Man's actually grown on on my own tier list recently. I think Spider Woman is like low B tier. I think she is kind of a comeback card. But if your opponent just has like individually strong cards in a spot and isn't like swarming a space, she's not that good. But she also has the ability to kind of get like a ridiculous amount of power on a spot, and if you can repeat effect, she's gonna win a square. Where I feel like she's a decent B tier card. I think White Tiger is actually A tier. 5 mana for 8 power is really good. The distribution is not very even, but the fact that it's really like obvious, like I can double the effect here and go to another spot is really good. And the fact that the tiger can like totally swing a spot and can like be summoned in a spot where you normally can't commit a resource there, like the altar, like Death's Domain, like the cards can't be played here domain. I think White Tiger can really like steal some games, and the fact that you can possibly repeat their effect naturally with locations like double on reveal effects or Odin or something like that, where White Tiger I think is A tier. Chavez is maybe a hot take. I think Chavez is S tier or A tier. I'm not sure where I'm gonna put her yet. But Chavez is so good, and it's the kind of card that seems really like underwhelming. Actually, got nerfed. 6 mana for 10. It got nerfed. It's 6 mana for 9 now. The fact that in like Magic and Hearthstone and stuff like that, you have this issue where you draw your high cost cards early. That can even happen in Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap doesn't have like a typical mulligan where you can like send cards back or like redraw your hand if you don't like it or something like that. But what it does have is a card like Chavez, where you have this really strong card for 6 mana that you only ever draw on turn 6. The fact that this can never rot in your hand, and you're always going to have it on turn 6 if you need it, is really good. That's the exact kind of thing you want. You want it, like, it's understated compared to other 6 drops, but the fact that I'm only ever drawing this on turn 6, where I can, like, make the use out of my hand, I can use all the resources in my hand, I cannot have my 6 drop get Iceman or something like that. Makes this card really strong. I think that the fact that you're always drawing this on turn 6 is an insane ability that, like, again, it doesn't seem that powerful, but when you play with this card, and if you've played other card games, like, the fact that you have your, like, finisher, even though it's underpowered compared to other ones, if you could always have your strongest card on the last turn of the game, you would. Like, that's the only turn you want it in your hand. You don't want it in your hand any other turn. Where I feel like Chavez is really good. Abomination, I think, is B tier because I think that its base stats are not that bad, and the fact that you like want to discard it and there's payoffs for discarding it. This is the only card I think is in B tier in the discard deck because I think like the games where you have Abomination, I think this card is a lot better. Or I mean, sorry, not Abomination, Apocalypse. Heimdall, think is like kind of a strong finisher, but not that strong. I think it's like okay. I think there are better finishers, but I do think this is a pretty swingy effect where you can like win some games off of it. Hulk actually got buffed. I think Hulk is actually like a B tier card. One of the few cards that I think is vanilla a B tier card because it's just like great stats for cost. Like if you don't have some of these other cards and you just want to play Hulk, I don't think that's that crazy. Hulk is just like it's really if you just have access to pool one cards, it's really hard to beat a Hulk. Hulk will just like generically be strong at a single square. Hulk can be pretty good out of nowhere. Weirdly enough, the only like vanilla static card I'm putting here. Odin, I'm gonna do this really quick. Odin and Onslaught I think are both. Well, no, okay. I'm gonna do this quickly. So Spectrum and Onslaught I think both are A tier because I think they are one of the stronger cards in the effect. I think Onslaught is really win more though. I think Spectrum is better than Onslaught because Spectrum lets you win multiple lanes. Onslaught normally only lets you win one lane that you're probably already winning. I think Onslaught, the games I played him, he was just like kind of win more where it felt redundant. Where like I didn't really need his effect because like if I already had my Devil Dinosaur there or my Iron Man there, I was probably just already winning there. Where I feel like Onslaught doesn't like swing a game like some of the other cards are as far as finishers, but I think he's still really strong. Spectrum I think is really good. I think Spectrum lets you win multiple lanes for cheap cost. Like if you have just a whole deck of ongoing cards and you have like six other ongoing cards on the board, it's I put 5 power in a lane. This card got buffed by the way. I put 5 power in a lane. From Spectrum herself, and then she gives +2 to everything else. You can swing multiple lanes with this card. It's very I think it's very reasonable to make this card one of the focuses you're building your deck around. Odin I think is the only S tier finisher out of the ones I went through, because Odin's like double all like on reveal effects is insane. Um, Really high power too, 6 mana for 8, really high power, and you can go like White Tiger won't hit its own spot, Odin, and then you get 2 more like it's really good. Um, this is one of the last cards I think you can like build a deck around out of just using the pool one cards and then win based on it. But so this is my tier list. Just trying to get like a good. Here, let me zoom out my camera a little bit. I could be wrong, but this is just what I found. I only have access to pool one cards, and this is just like what I found to be really strong. I'm gonna keep climbing and see where I end up, but I hope you guys liked the video. I did partially just make this because tier list videos tend to do really good on YouTube, but I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for watching.